Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brace for Impact. I'm riding solo today. Findy, unfortunately, is feeling unwell, and it's coming to the start of the season, so we have to put out an episode. I can't wait any longer. I do apologize for how scattered all the episodes have been a little recently. We're kind of adjusting to everything. I got a lot busier on weekends than I expected kind of this year, as to last year, of course. We're getting closer and closer to the 2-year anniversary of Brace for Impact, which would be quite a cool thing to happen all over again. On the way there, though, we've got some results, some news, and a bit of a primer. I'm going to try and do my best to go over all the teams and everything leading into Brace for Impact, leading into ESL Impact Season 6. Of course, the finals are going to be in Stockholm, so, do with that as you will. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about here. So we're going to kick it off with our friends down in South America. They had a tournament going on over the last week or so. It was a 3-day tournament, so it was a weekend tournament, and it was the closed qualifier for a tournament called BGS Esports 2024. It was the closed qualifier for the women's side. There were 8 teams that came in, all were invited. I had Atrix, Fluxo, Furia, Gaze for You, Insanity, MIBR, Peak Academy, and the Killers. So lots of good teams to come in there. Pretty much almost exactly the same thing as what the South American division is going to look like. More on that later. Yeah, it's like one swap out. So more on that later. We'll come back to that. However, not too much to write home about just yet. It was all group play to determine this. Was 2 groups of 4, so kind of how they did ESL Impact Season 2, I want to say, 1 and 2, where they were both kind of what is it, 2 groups of 4, and the top 2 teams of each group move forward. So in group 1 you had Fluxo, Atrix, MIBR, and Peak Academy. That's a crazy combination. I'm sorry, I'm reading this just so you guys understand. I'm reading this for the first time as well. I thought that would be the best way to kind of get this news across. Each team, it was a single or a double elim bracket within them. So it wasn't even Swiss group play or anything. It was double elim bracket. So Fluxo went up against Atrix at the start. They won 16-14. MIBR in the meantime beat Peak FE, who was the other team there. That's how the first match went. Elimination match, Atrix 2-0'd. MIBR lost the winners match against Fluxo 2-1. So Fluxo was through, and then the decider match was Atrix going up against MIBR. Atrix took that one 2-0. They moved forward with Fluxo into the playoffs. On the Group B side, Furia, the Killers, Insanity, Gaze and You. Furia beat Insanity in the opening match. The Killers beat Gaze, and Insanity would then 2-0 Gaze. Furia then was left in the winners match to play against the Killers. They 2-0'd, they made it through, and then the Killers had to go up against Insanity, and they beat them. So it is the Killers, who is Hera, Sholina, Fly, Selax, Razini, and Rock was their coach. Atrix, Fluxo, and Furia. So MIBR are unfortunate. They're kind of with the group distribution. They end up on the losing side as Atrix power through and make it into the LAN finals, because that's what this is. It's a LAN finals. Now that matchup is that this LAN is not to be played for a while. It's actually going to be played in October. It's the weekend, October 11th, October 12th. It's a $5,000 US prize pool, the majority of it going to first place, second place as well, getting the remaining Brazilian reals. So that puts Fluxo Demons going up against the Killers in the first semifinals, and Atrix going up against Furia in the other semifinals. That's going to be a really good one to watch. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be in October. We'll come in, we'll keep an eye on that one. We'll be back to see that one in a little bit. Now, moving forward, there is a lot to talk about Cash Cups because there are quite a few to go over. I got to open this up a little bit more so I can get the full results. We're going to start from the bottom as we always do. With Asia, they had 2 Cash Cups come through, which is pretty good. 2 teams in each, and it was Ampaman, which I believe was the what do they call themselves? Team Invincible, but just under a different name, going up against Powerpuff Girls. You know what? It's a full-time matchup. It ended up going the way of Powerpuff Girls. They won 13-3, 13-11 in the first Cash Cup, and then they won 13-6, 13-4 in the second Cash Cup. And it looks like it's just the same team. Yeah, it looks like Powerpuff Girls went against Empanan again, and it's mostly just kind of... They're treating it as if it's a bit of a 10-man, which is fine, because at least they're getting some money for it, and they're supporting the scene, which is incredible. Great to see from them. Glad that they're earning some money from that. On the other side of the ocean from them, we do have the Oceanic Cash Cup going on, or we don't. The last two have been canceled, interestingly enough. Usually we say that about Asia. This time it's actually Oceania. They couldn't get enough players together. They might be calling it now after how many years without any support to make it worth their while. So both of those being canceled, that's so unfortunate. You really hate to see that come through. On the other side, we do have, or on the other side, continually moving through the wild cards here, then we have the South African Cash Cups. They had a few teams sign up. It was actually Kitsune versus Invicta. I believe at this point that the ATK team, the majority of them at least, I don't know what Team South Africa looked like, but they were busy with IESF results, which I do also need to pull up. But they were busy as well. And so Invicta went up against Kitsune, and it was a Kitsune win, 16-13, 13-5 on series number 1. And then ATK came back, and they took it by 4. So there's actually 6 teams signed up for this one, for the second Cash Cup number 15, the most recent one. 6 teams signed up, and ATK were the ones that came out on top. They beat the Leftovers in the semifinals. Kitsune beat Very Demure, which is great. I can see Queenza, Starlight, a few recognizable names to kind of gelling together, kind of forming their way in. Oh wait, hold on, I wrote it wrong. Kitsune Kenko won. That's my bad. I don't have a partner to tell me I'm reading it wrong. Kitsune Kenko beat ATK, and I think that's the first victory of a team in recent form. Yeah, because White Rabbit Amarallis play, they generally lose to ATK. Oh no, sorry. I'm very incorrect here. White Amarallis have won a single Cash Cup against ATK in recent memory. The last one they won was in 2023. They won one in May this year, and now Kitsune Keko have beaten ATK as well. So not super dominant at the top of the board, but you know what? That's okay. I like seeing there's a lot more teams playing in South Africa. They're doing a lot more. Now, moving up into the main regions here, we have 2 more Cash Cups going on in the South America region. There was 3 teams in number 14, Palinia, Season 2, which was Junger, Anna X, Josie, who is most recently there. Lay and Babs were on one team. Peak Academy, which was Cara de Banana, 11, Dynasty, Valulu, and Lulu 4K. It was a 13-7 on both maps for Palinia to take that one. And then in number 15, and then for ESL Impact Cash Cup number 15 in South America, we had 6 teams sign up. The top 4 was Insanity going up against Peak Academy. Peak Academy won. The Killers went up against Fluxo Demons. So a lot of these teams played in the BSG qualifier, which is pretty cool to see. They went up against Fluxo Demons, playing with Babs as a stand-in. I don't remember for who. That's going to be really rude on my part. It was a stand-in for Anna X, I believe. Or was it Poppins? No, it was for Anna X. Babs stood in from Anna X, and Fluxo Demons took their first match against the Killers 2-1, and then won against Peak Academy 2-0 in the finals. That's pretty cool from them. Continuing on here, I'm just kind of doing these rapid fire. We do have the North American ones, and a bit of a surprising result. Number 14, TSM Shimmer taking the victory. They beat Impact in the semifinals, and then Nouns beat Aware on the other side of the bracket. That left TSM to go up against Nouns. It was a 2-0, 13-11, 13-2 for TSM Shimmer. Then you move on to Cash Cup number 15, and an interesting addition. 7 teams signed up. FlyQuest Red, usually they stick out of these things. They're back in onto this one. They win the whole thing. How they got there, well, a bit of a different one. They played up against the team called Old Stars. They're actually going by a different name. We'll get there, but they go by Old Stars, at least in this one. They beat them 2-0. On the other side of the bracket, TSM Shimmer actually is playing with a stand-in in Tokis. They lose to Team Gone, which at this point was basically Impact again, just with a little bit of a sub situation. So Impact win 2-1 against TSM Shimmer for the first time. I think it's basically the first time another team other than FlyQuest has beaten Shimmer in one of these Cash Cups. And yeah, the grand finals ends up being FlyQuest Red going up against Team Gone, which is Impact. FlyQuest Red win it 2-0. It didn't ever really seem that close. It was 13-4 on both maps. But hey, there's some movement happening in NA. And then, of course, we're going to come to the final section here, Europe. Europe, of course, always bringing in teams. They had 12 in number 14. Notable teams coming through: Dreamcatchers, Crescent, AAB female, you got Elite Clan Violet, One Day Vixens showing up with a notable Valkyrie playing on there. She was part of a roster at one point, then immediately let go, but she's in representing the British, as Affinity would happily say. Spirit was in there as well as Saw, notably, of course, because the male side of Saw has been very good in recent results. Got to the finals there. It was Dreamcatchers going up against Spirit, and it was a 2-0 for Dreamcatchers, a 13-10, a 13-1. They thrashed them on Dust 2, so be aware of that if you're going up against Dreamcatchers. And then finally, the last one, 17 teams signed up. Notable teams include Crescent, Instilio FE, One Day, Saw, Elite Clan Violet, AAB Female, Permita were in this one, and 5 Bytes. And it got to the grand finals of One Day versus Permita. One Day winning that one 2-0. It was a 13-3 on the first map, 16-12 on the second. Permita coming in second place. And a notable thing about that, actually, is I casted the semifinal of Permita versus Elite Clan Violet from Fan Expo Toronto. So that was pretty cool to do. I had a lot of fun with that. Now, moving over, we are going to go to IESF real quickly because they do have the 2024 Female World Championship qualifiers happening. Or they did at least have them in Africa at this time. I just want to make sure we haven't missed anything. No, we haven't. So yeah, one spot available for from the African Championship, of course, and that leaves with. And there's actually, you know what? There's been a bit more of an update as well as I've opened this up. So just to update you guys, we have all the team. We have Netherlands, who are the winners from last season. We have Saudi Arabia to be decided. Or a Saudi Arabian team, I guess, to be decided on that one. Team France, Poland, Spain, Portugal, Sweden, and Team Denmark from Europe. Team USA, Team Canada from North America, Team Argentina from South America. We're waiting on the Asian qualifier, but Team Australia is planning to be the team from the Oceanic qualifier, Team Kazakhstan from the Central Asian qualifier, and Team Iran from the West Asian qualifier. So that's kind of where those shake out. The final one that we have to talk about here is the South African qualifier. Sorry, is the African Championship. That is the qualifier through them. There was 4 teams that showed up. Team Morocco, Team Egypt, Team Tunisia, and Team South Africa. And it pretty much went the way you think it goes. Interestingly enough, Tunisia had an interesting run themselves. It was South Africa going up against Morocco to start it. South Africa takes the W. Egypt wins against Tunisia 2-1. So it's Morocco and Tunisia in the lower bracket semifinals. Tunisia beats Morocco 2-0 and now has to wait for the winner or for the loser of the upper bracket final. South Africa goes up against Egypt. They win 2-0, and that puts them into the grand final to potentially qualify. Egypt faces off against Tunisia. Tunisia wins on this time around, 2-0, and so South Africa goes up against Tunisia. It was a 13-9, 13-2 for South Africa to qualify. So shout out to Megs, long-standing. She was the first person we interviewed actually in episode 2. If you want to go back and see that, very posed to see her in. I'm gonna hopefully see her in Saudi Arabia. So that's awesome to see from them. So that locks South Africa in to from the African Championship. So now we just wait to see who comes through on the Asian qualifier. I don't know who will pop in on that one. It'll probably be between Team China and Team Thailand is going to be my guess, but I have no idea on what that qualifier looks like at all. All right. That is the results from the last few weeks. It's been a few weeks, so I tried to cover everything. If I missed anything, please do let me know in the comments. I'm only one man. I can only see so much. However, I do see a lot when it comes to roster moves and other news associated. So we're going to start over in Europe, and I can proudly announce that Miley has joined Team Crescent as their opper. I believe she was playing with other teams in the qualifiers leading up to it. I'm going to do a quick check on that while I'm talking about it. But yeah, Team Crescent, of course, one of the teams that qualified for ESL Impact Season 6 through the open qualifiers. And I want to say that she was playing on... Where are they? Yeah, Trauma Dump. She was playing on a team called Trauma Dump that had Gencon. It was Miley, Gencon, Yun, Emmy, and Twix. I don't, at this point, know who she replaces on the team. It's a full Russian team as well. So that's something to be aware of, is Crescent is going to be 4 Russians plus the Czechian player in Miley. Shout out to Miley, though. She's done a great job where she's at. And, of course, she gets the opportunity to join Crescent in Season 6. So she'll be playing for sure. In other news, it's a big roster move, actually. Kiosa from Big has been benched. She's on her way out. I don't know what's up with her. It seemed like there was something surrounding the team that kind of made the move. It wasn't necessarily like a roster move for a roster move. It was um, like a personal matter basically come up. I have no idea though. No, Europe is not unfortunately my strong suit. In place, they bring in the recently departed Navi player in Letty. So Letty finds her feet quite quickly. She's going to be still in Season 6, this time playing under Big instead of Navi. We'll get to that in a little bit, of course, because there is more news on that later. And then the final piece of news kind of come through from, in terms of, there's two pieces more of news in from Europe. The next one, it's actually a big blow. Rachel, who last season played with Lettercook all the way into the finals of Impact Season 5. She's actually on her way out. She has parted ways with Lettercook. There hasn't been a replacement announced yet, but Lettercook are now basically looking for one for ESL Impact Season 6. I could see them picking up the other member of Navi who was taken out, so in Lena. They could potentially pick her up as well. They already do have a Polish player brought on in Hikomi, of course, because of all the roster moves that have happened in the last little bit with Astra joining Navi. That could be a little bit of a change there. Lena coming in to replace Astra in a weird way. And then the last piece of news here, it is a confirmation. Permitted, of course, qualifying for Season 6 have announced that they've actually picked up these players in Victoria, Yuli, Monkey to Yuli, really, and Missy. So they've been playing with them for a little bit. They got through qualifier number 2 with Oxyset and Tina in tow, the other two players that were on the roster already. And yeah, so Missy, Victoria, and Monkey to Julie all join in on that roster. They are going to be in to play for Season 6 as well. And we'll get to them in a little bit again, as I've been saying. Moving over to South America, then, we have a bit of a roster shakeup in a team that you didn't really expect it to come from. Fluxo, they treat their team more like a family than a team. Roster move has been made. It is actually Yuli from Fluxo that's going to make her way out of the team. She's been benched, unfortunately, and to replace her, they brought in Josie. And Josie's been kind of sitting on the wings for a little bit here. She played with W7M Female a while back, and then most recently was playing for Shrika's in various Cash Cups and other things like that. So Josie is back into play, and it's pretty cool to see from her on that. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any teams I'm thinking of right now for Josie. Because I know she's had a bit of a career herself, I believe. I mean, she's 22. She's young. Right. She played for MIBR for a little bit. She played for Big Akipa for a little bit, for 6 months. They didn't really do much, unfortunately, but she was there. She has that European experience coming back. And then, of course, she was with W7M and Shrika's. And now she's come back into the fold with Fluxo. Pretty cool to see from them. That's it from Brazil, from South America. Moving into North America, we actually have a lot of news. It's pretty cool to talk about, pretty cool to see. They didn't qualify for Season 6, but they did finally find a new org. Gnomes, who most recently had left the Wanted Goons Bandits, as they were known as Wanted Goons Bandits. They left Wanted Goons, went out and played as Gnomes. I believe I called them Goblins a few times. I do apologize for that. That's my bad. But, I mean, what can you say? Comes into a new roster then as the 5 sticking together. They brought on Valken as a coach, and they have joined Unjustified. So Unjustified now have that advanced roster, and then of course they're also now joined by the women's side. They're just going by Unjustified FE, I think. There's nothing special about their roster name. Pretty cool to see. Hopefully we'll see more of them in the future. I'm not sure. I believe they played the last Cash Cup. They've been playing the Cash Cups. But now I think it's them kind of waiting to see if they can qualify for Season 7. That's kind of where it sits for them. In other roster news then, it's a bit of a bigger one. Artstar, she had a few seasons in Impact. She's now unfortunately had to step back to focus on a new opportunity being presented to her. In her wake, Bunny will be replacing her on Team Karma, although they're not necessarily called Team Karma for that long, because Blue Otter, a team or an organization rather from League of Legends, they're the partner of C9 in League. They basically partnered them for the Academy roster. They've picked up Team Karma, so Emelite, Ellie, Bunny, Oya, and Rain with XP3 as their coach have finally found a home after a long time looking. Great news for them. Congrats. glad to see that they have some support behind them. I know Emily was very vocal about, I've been working multiple jobs, long hours every single day to get here. Glad they have some support behind them. Hope it goes, it gets better and better for them as time goes on. And hopefully this season they really are able to charge for that qualifier spot, because there is only one in NA. But again, we will get to that because we are getting closer and closer to finishing up the news. The last little bit of news that I want to talk about, and this is one I think that hits a little closer to home, especially in NA, just because of how rampant it is for women in Counter-Strike as a whole to deal with harassment, to deal with all the BS that surrounds them having a more feminine voice when they get into games. They don't have to even be streaming. You hear a feminine voice, and almost always there's going to be somebody that's going to be in the game with them that is going to, oh, you're a woman? I can't be having this. I cannot be playing with this person. I cannot stand to be with you in this area. If you guys remember, back before they were FlyQuest Red, when they were CLG Red, one of the new kids on the block, she got picked up before the big move at the start of Season 1. She was on this team before Impact became a thing. Kelsie. She recently, actually for a while, she's been gone. Basically, since she got dropped at the start of the before the start of the year, I want to say, even for a few months before the start of the year, when she was dropped from FlyQuest Red, we haven't really heard much of her. I've seen her stream occasionally. She hasn't been engaging anybody, really. There's not been much from her. She's mostly kept to herself, just kind of had fun doing her own thing, which everybody has the ability to do. There's no worry on that at all. Basically a week ago, she came out and she said, hey guys, I'm more than likely going to be deleting this account, the Kelsie account. I've recently changed my lifestyle, and I'm actually trying to love every aspect of my life. As some of you know, I've been blackmailed for most of my time on here. Yikes. That is horrible. There's no other way to put it. Like, we've seen a lot of stuff, at least in NA, between NBG, all of the guys with Elevate, and you hear all the time about the harassment women take within Face It Pugs, within Premiere, within just any other situation, and yeah, getting blackmailed is just horrible. Like, this is a young woman who's just trying to find her way in the world, just trying to have fun, just be with her friends, and instead she's getting blackmailed. She goes on to continue, as rare as it is to log into social medias these days, I hate seeing new threats that I stopped letting control me years ago, so I also just find social media draining. I may come back, I may not. I was never a huge fan of the name, as it could go viral doing the whole exposing routine, writing all my findings in the esports community over the years. I personally think Twitter drama is boring, and I'd rather find peace in the world, although it is tempting to watch everything burn. Thank you for everyone who made life fun, but I think I want to explore some new adventures. So, it's a tough one. It's tough to hear that she had to deal with that. It's tough that NA and Counter-Strike as a whole, as a scene, there's a lot of stuff that happens in that underground that, somebody like me who kind of just, I'm here to cast and that's it, I might not hear as much of it, But you talk to the players and you hear all this stuff. You hear the threats, you hear about the harassment, you hear about the bullying, you hear about anything and everything. I mean, you get like people stealing skins from each other and stealing money from each other, taking money from people that deserved it otherwise. That all that kind of stuff. It really does put a dent in your want to be around here. So I totally respect what Kelsie's saying here in terms of trying to get out, and she's done it effectively. I mean, she hasn't really played on a team. She hasn't effectively played on a team since FlyQuest Red. So she had her experience on the top team. She's deciding to move on. All power to her. We hope to see her either come back again with a better time, and maybe some way like that. But honestly, enjoy the rest of your life, Kelsie. Esports is fleeting. The rest of your life is long. So do take care of yourself. And you probably won't ever see this, but I'm in your corner for taking care of yourself and stepping away. All right. That is all of the news. I got that all done in 25 minutes. That's wild. That is wild, by the way. Look what happens when I have a partner. They just talk. I got through all the news in 25 minutes. We don't need anything else. The good news is I'm not going to leave you alone with just that. We are going to be in on with a bit of a primer. I left half an hour for this, guys. It's a primer for everything. So we're going to go through every single team. I'm going to try and post all the teams as well moving forward. So we'll see what we get. We're going to start where we usually don't start. And that is in Europe. So the European division is the largest division by far. It sits with 10 teams. Starts with 12 teams in it. My bad. I always forget. It's 6 teams in there. So yeah, 12 teams in Europe. This is where I got my numbers wrong, by the way. If you recall, the last what is it called? The last title was, and then there was 22. I got my numbers wrong. I don't know how I got to that number, but I did. I think I went like 10, 6, and 6. Not correct. There's 12 teams in Europe. There's 8 teams in North America. There's 8 teams in South America. Put that all together, you get 28 teams. So we're going to go through all 28 teams. We're going to start in Europe, and we're going to start in Group A because the groups have been officially announced. And going in through Group A, we've got Imperial, Big Akipa, Dreamcatchers, HSG, Crescent, and Permita. So we're going to talk a little bit about how some of the teams got here and what their previous records kind of have looked like. Starting off, of course, with a bang, we're going to talk about Imperial. They come off their another season win. They are currently undefeated when it comes to LAN finals. They have won every single ESL Impact so far when they get to the LAN, and they haven't really had a lot of competition to get there. They've lost on LAN once or twice. They lost online once or twice, notably to NIP of the past, but overall the record is sterling. They brought in Zaz in replace of Vilga a long time ago, like last season, and it paid dividends. They found themselves a lot better off in Season 6 finals. They cruised through and took the victory there. They're looking to be the team to beat when it comes to literally anything in Europe, anything in the world with women's teams. Moving forward, then, onto like the second place team in that group, Big Akipa. They've made, of course, a little bit of a roster switch up here. So, as time goes on, they get less and less a Portuguese-Spanish mix and more of an international roster, or at least an international roster in terms of inter-European roster. So, of course, as I mentioned earlier, Letty has joined the squad in place of Kiosa, so they pick up the Polish powerhouse from Navi. Looking to have a strong bounce along another strong season. They made ESL Impact Season 5 finals. They beat FlyQuest Red notably in that as well. I believe they did not make it out of the groups. I'm going to double check myself right here before I go any farther. Yes, they did not make it out of the groups. HSG ended up beating them for that honor. In the meantime, they're going to be slotting in probably that second, third place in the group. That's where they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot because it's an extended playoffs here. 5 teams from ESL Impact Europe are going to be making it into the LAN finals in Stockholm. So they have a good chance as any, right? You can lose your first match in the playoffs and still have a chance to make it, which is huge for them. Continuing on, then, we're going to move into the final team that has some precedent coming into the season, and it is HSG, which is crazy to think of, by the way, because, of course, they have always had that wild card spot since Season 2 that they've relied on, basically, to get to the finals every single time, but they've never had any actual experience in Europe or in any long-standing competition other than the stuff that they play in Perfect World against other women's teams, which we don't really get privy to because it's very hard to get to a website to get that kind of information, and even then, a lot of times it's hard to translate it, and they constantly are getting rid of that kind of stuff. So, good to see them, and they finally moved over to Europe. They qualified through Open Qualifier number 2. They didn't make it in their first shot. Of course, they actually ended up losing to, let me quickly grab that. They ended up losing to Dreamcatchers in the first qualifier. It was a 2-1. So they do have a bit of work to do here, but they have the best chance of any to have a lot of improvement here. They've kept GFI, Olga, and Zhao Wu. Hazel is still on the roster as well, and they've brought in the ex-guild player in Anna from Latvia. So an experienced player that has had a lot of success. She, of course, was on the team that did not qualify for the Season 5 finals. They lost a few matches in a row in the last few weeks, and they just crumbled to not be able to go to the LAN finals. And, that ushered in Letter Cook actually getting through and going to the LAN finals. And we will get to Letter Cook as well. All right. The final 3 teams coming in to Group A then are Dreamcatchers, Crescent, and Permita. We're going to move on to the first to qualify, which was Dreamcatchers. An interesting roster, one that we know a bit about, but not a ton. They have some old heads coming back in. Elizabeth and Fatal from 9 Pandas Fearless and 1 Win and Fearless Cheetahs. those kinds of teams. They're coming back. They've been joined by Kitsuna, Wien, and Sursa, with Rex as the coach. They got through on the first qualifier by beating HSG in the semifinal spot. Great to see from them. Hoping to see a lot of punch from them. They've been doing really well in other competitions to lead into this. And of course, it's a Russian core. It's a Russian stack, really. This is their bread and butter, right? They come in out of nowhere. They form this huge roster. They make they put everybody on notice. And you know what? They might even get picked up by an org because they are looking. They're one of the many teams, or not the many, one of the few teams that's looking for an org in this season. Next up to qualify from qualifier number 1 is Crescent. As I mentioned, Miley has joined this roster as the Opera. The rest is a Russian stack. It's going to consist of 4 of the 5 players in Mayo, Ayaka, Margot, Amor, and Akinyora. I don't know who is the Opera for that squad, but they have been replaced by Miley, who is, of course, joining them from her previous various teams. I don't think she had many professional team experience before that point. But yeah, Crescent has qualified as well. And Dreamcatchers and Crescent are going to be joined by the final edition in Permida, which is Tina, Oxyset, Missy, Victoria, and Monkey to Julie. And Victoria's the interesting name in that group because after coming in through qualifier number 2, she's joining her teammates in Fatal and Elizabeth, former teammates at least, from Fearless Cheetahs, from 9 Pandas Fearless. So lots to see about from there. But yeah, that squad of 5 makes up the final of the 3 that come in. All 3 of those teams will be vying for some kind of punch-up to go up against Big Akipa and HSG, and maybe even throw hands with Imperial. But that's a bit of a harder sell for this squad. Moving on then into Group B, we have the standouts. This has a full organizational support, which is really cool to see, by the way. Or not full. Not full. I forgot Lettercook isn't an org. So it consists of Lettercook, Navi Javelins, NIP, Spirit, Astralis, and Ents. We're going to start from the top. We're just going to work our way down. Lettercook, of course, the first team in on this list. They actually reformed. They were initially, Season 5 was going to be their last season. They weren't going to continue forward. They said, this is it. We are done after this. And then July 23rd, they said, we're coming back. So they came back. They had, of course, the invite to come back for Season 5. They qualified for and made the grand finals of the Season 5. They lost to Imperial in the end. They've also lost a few other players in the meantime as well. They lost Astra to Navi, and they've recently lost Rachel, who has left and has not been replaced as of yet. So Joanna, Melly, Menaskine, and Hikomi, who is the new player on the block, will have to look for a 5th before the season starts, which is coming up by the end of this week. So we'll find out pretty soon who their first matchup, who their first game is, and of course it's against Navi, because why wouldn't it be? On the other side of things, of that rivalry that's now forming, is the Navi Javelins. It's a new look roster. Viku, Angelica, and Hanka, the last 3 remaining from the original core that was signed so long ago to Navi. They are joined by Astra and D7. D7 coming in from a guild, I want to say. I just want to make sure I get that right. Yeah, she comes in from the Guild Esports side and is joined by Astra, who most recently beat Navi Javelins in Season 5 with Let Her Cook. So that is something to keep an eye on, right? Very important to remember. Because I want to say that Navi got grouped. Yes, they did. They got grouped. They lost to Let Her Cook in the start, beat TSM Shimmer in the lower bracket, and then lost to Fluxo to go out, what is it, 7th, 8th? 5th, 6th, sorry. They went out 5th, 6th with Big Akipa. So they got grouped. That's something important to keep an eye on, by the way. Anyways, they're joined by Astra and D7. Otherwise, the roster stays the same. They've got a good... It hopefully is going to power them over the edge. They've been always struggling as second fiddle to Imperial, who was before Enigma, who was Pigeons. They've always been second fiddle to them. This time, they're third, or the 4th, 6th fiddle. Like, they're not the same team they were. And so these changes are hopefully going to be the thing that pushes them over the edge, that gets them to where they want to be. And we'll hope to see what that comes with, of course. Joining them as well then in that group is NIP. This is a different NIP than what we're used to. It's finally finding its form. It's taken a little bit. Of course, last season Vilga was with Fearless Cheetahs. That was the roster. She was with Fearless Cheetahs. This time around, she's been able to sign on a permanent basis with NIP. She actually played for them in a few tournaments after Season 5 ended. And of course, that is Kiara, Naomi, Aim, Ramzan, and Nato Safix, as the coach, which is really cool, by the way. He has a lot of experience under him. I've always been an IESF fan. And Vilga then joins in on a permanent basis with them. She signed July 16th. That roster, of course, has been dreaming for the longest time of making it to the finals. And this is probably their best shot with 5 spots open. You only need to make it second, third to get to the playoffs, and then you have 2 chances from there to qualify for Stockholm. You know that Vilga wants to get back into LANs. She is great at the LANs. She's great as a leader, and she wants to take this young team far. And considering Kiara and Naomi are on this squad, like that is your IESF champions from 2023 taking the lead there. Moving forward, then, Spirit FE are the next team to join us. They qualified. They kept their spot from Season 5. They are the... they're not the last team in the group to keep their spot. We do have one more team that kept their spot. But Jamie Ulis, Averona, Roni, 4K, and Tenweri... don't know much about them. Again, another Russian stack to come in. Team Spirit has always kind of had those, though. And they've done okay enough to continue on. This time, of course, though, it's going to be a lot harder, right? You have 4 teams that don't make it. So if you're sitting in that 4th place spot, you really are struggling. But that might be where they end up. It's one of those things of can they just barely squeak through to make it through into further conversations. And yeah, they ended up 4th in their group last time around. So it was very close for them not making it to another season. The last team then to have made it through automatic qualification through Season 5 is Astralis Women. It's their new squad. And this one is a bit of a tongue twister. So Astralis last season went 0-5 in their and dropped out, unfortunately. Here's the thing. They've made pretty much a huge changeover, and they've kept... Who have they kept? I'm trying to look real quick. They kept Ismo, and they kept Mary. They kept Ismo and Mary. They brought in Nea, Pollux, and KitKat. And as a result, they get to keep ex-Guild Esports roster spot. Because you have to remember, Guild dropped out of ESL Impact at the end of the season after going 2nd place in their groups and failing to qualify by losing to Letter Cook in the play-in matches 2-1. So they didn't make the ESL Impact finals, even though they went 2nd in their groups. Guild was no longer supporting them. They pieced out. They went their separate ways, except for the trio of Nea, Pollux, and KitKat, who were then signed by Astralis and joined Ismo and Mary to give Astralis Women the final spot in Season 5, which Guild had held beforehand. Congrats to them for keeping that spot. Congrats to them for finding an org, and we'll see what kind of damage they can do. This is a pretty good squad. It's up to, we'll see what happens with Mary and Ismo in terms of moving forward, though. This is, of course, Astralis have always struggled when it comes to the women's scene. We're hoping that they were doing some kind of long-term growth project. It wasn't working for them. They cut the cord on that. They've kept the Danish core. They've brought in a Norwegian. They brought in a Swedish player. The hope is that they're going to have some kind of effect, and they're going to requalify for this next season. It's going to be hard. This is a tough group with the top 3 being Navi, Letter Cook, and NIP, but it's never going to be easy for any teams like this. Now, getting to the final team of this group, the one probably with the most interesting storyline coming into this, of course, is ENCE Athena. They have not made any roster change, or no, they had Jaya coming in now, I believe. I don't know. Ida, Emson, Jaya, Valde, Milo. So there's no roster change for this squad. They made it through in open qualifier number 2. They actually were close in qualifier number 1. They didn't make it. They ended up losing in the semifinals in the qualifying round to Crescent, who was in Group A. But yeah, so then the roster of Milo, Valde, Gia, Emson, and Ida is back. They made it through qualifying number 2. They have the most to prove this season in terms of trying to stay up because they were so close last season and it ended up not working for them on, I believe it was round difference or kind of how their head-to-head went up against NIP. Yeah, they lost to NIP, and that's what did them in, and they only lost 2-1. So the differences were very, very few and far between NIP and ENCE, and they've come back for another season to play them in the same group, so we'll get to see that huge rivalry come up, and that matchup is actually going to be the first one. It is the grudge matches in week number 1 coming up later this week, so do tune into all those. But as it stands, that is the 12 teams that have qualified for Season 6 of ESL Impact Europe. 5 of them make it through to Stockholm, where we'll get to watch them with great interest and see kind of where they go. Okay. Moving on. We're going to go over to South America next, and we're going to finish with North America. So a big group on the way. South American division consists of 8 teams. This time around, 2 teams qualify for the season 6 finals in Stockholm. Last season, of course, it was just one for North to go to Dallas. This time around, they've got 2, and of course, it's not 2 groups. It is one big group. Each team plays each other once, and then of course the top 2 will make it. Top 4 qualify for next season. The remaining 4 will have to requalify, and we've had a bit of a fun. We have had a bit of a turnover, I guess, in terms of names that have come through into as participants. So starting off with the team that qualified last season for the season 5 finals, Fluxo. They've made, of course, that roster change Josie for Yuli to replace her. So Junger, Goddess, Poppins, Anna X, and Josie with Darkseid, of course, as their coach. They're going to look to defend their title against Furia, who is Ka Sensei, Isa, Gabs, Bazinia, and Lulitens with a new coach in as well. Lulitens, of course, is the new player coming in off the block, and JNT is actually their new coach. So Furia looking to improve upon their previous season as well. They don't necessarily have to beat Fluxo this time, but you know they would, of course, want to. Other teams to join them, MIBR, who have had a few changes on the way since June happened. They parted ways with Furzy. They brought Gabi into the lineup, and they parted ways with Rock and have brought in Aramen as their new coach. So Gazinia, Regain, Babs, Danny, and Gabby with Ramen as the coach. They're looking to improve upon last season as well. They didn't end the best, unfortunately. I'm going to just quickly verify. Yeah, they finished 3rd place. But it was always close matchups, and I believe who else did they lose? I believe they lost to Atrix, I want to say. Who did they? No, they beat Atrix. They beat Atrix, but in week 7 they forfeited to Genkid, I believe, due to scheduling conflict. So anyways, they're looking to remain in that kind of 3rd place fight for 2nd place. That's what they really want to do. Recent results haven't been the best for them, though. That's something to keep an eye on. Especially with that BGS not qualifying for the LAN finals in October. That's going to sting a lot. The final team then to qualify from Season 5 is Atrix. This team has been on their way up for a little bit now. Sinon, Mari, Bokur, Littles, and Sofia XYZ with Segala as the coach. They're looking to punch up, get into that 3rd place spot, fight for a qualification spot as well into Stockholm. You know a lot of these players want to do that. Sinon, and I believe a few others, Bokur maybe, I believe, had played in previous LAN finals. I mean, she played for MIBR at one point, so I believe that's kind of where they were. And like Sinon, of course, as well. One of those players that was on Black Dragons before they disbanded or they lost their org support. So that's something to keep an eye on. Those players are hungry for that 2nd qualification spot. We'll see where it ends up, though. All right, and then of course the teams to qualify through the open qualifiers. You have Insanity female, Brandinia, Juliana, Armcom, Sheena, Cammy with their coach Slip. They signed Cammy and Slip, of course, is the coach. That was in July. This team has been looking pretty okay coming into the season. They've definitely been making some little shakeups here and there. They've been fighting all the teams that kind of below the top 4. They've been fighting the other ones, and they've been doing an okay job. So that's something to keep an eye on for them as they look to try and maintain a qualification spot into Season 7. Of course, then the next team being the Killers, Hera, Sholina, Fly, Selax, and Razini with Rock, the notable previous coach for MIBR. Rock has come in and has become the coach for the Killers. I believe they qualified for that LAN. I believe they were the team that qualified for that, the BGS LAN. So that's something to keep an eye on. I forget now. I don't have it open up to tell you guys. But yeah, that's something to keep an eye on as well. Moving along then, Peak Academy FE, Cards of Banana, 11, Dynasty, Valulu, and Lulu 4K. The fact that they're named Academy is very interesting to me. I'm guessing that means that the men's team are just the regular team, and because it's the women's team, they're the Academy side. I don't know the naming convention that they're trying to go for there. But again, just trying to get some reps in, trying to improve upon themselves season over season, and find their way forward. And then the last team to qualify is Capivaras with you, Arkinia, Luflix, Chroma, Elen, and Zen. And last I remember, Arkinia actually was on MIBR. She was, and she played for Guys and you. And now she's playing on Capyvaras. So Capyvaras looking to find their way, show that they're made of something. Arcania as well maybe has a point to prove with how many players MIBR have gone through in recent seasons, just trying to find a core that works, a team that really works together and improve. Maybe they left out a diamond in the rough with that player. Okay, getting into the last section here, then, it is going to be the North American division, probably the one with the most upside, the most change potential on the way. And we'll start from the top and we'll kind of work our way down. FlyQuest Red, no changes from them. Of course, Goosebreeder, Bibion, Cowday, Emmy, and Vanessa with Munster as their coach. They're looking to get that only qualification spot that's available for the finals. There is only one in North America this season, first time around. And it's going to be an interesting one because they have their biggest match in week number 2 against TSM Shimmer. And we'll have more on that in a second here. But yeah, not an unchanged roster because they haven't really needed to make any changes. They've been suffering a lot with LAN results. The hope is, of course, at this time around that they do get out of groups. Of course, they made it out of groups, I believe, season 3 finals. I believe that was their only time out of groups. Maybe in season 1 as well. But it's been a while since they've done so, and you really want to see them do that. You really want to see them improve and show that they're making their way to be very competitive against Europe, because they're the North American team at this point. Or are they? Because TSM Shimmer, of course, is back in for another season. They've had a bit of a roster swap. At the end of Season 5, Abby was replaced by Yuli, who was recently announced at the start of kind of the next cycle of when teams were kind of gearing up and getting ready for Season 6. So Empathy, LX, Phoebe, Mads, and Yuli with Florence as the coach. They have a lot of work for them ahead, because they are looking to qualify for Season 6 finals. They want to get there. They want to be the team to represent North America in Stockholm. And as somebody who has one of the players as their roommate, I know it's been a lot on them. They really want to show what they can do. And recent results have not done themselves justice. But they have a bit of time to improve before the big matchup against FlyQuest Red. That's going to be in week 2. That's next week. September 4th is when they face off against FlyQuest. So that's going to be the match to watch that week, and we'll have a little bit more on that probably by the time the next episode comes out. Continuing on then, Blue Otter Karma, Emilite, Rain, Olya, Ellie, and Bunny. Bunny, of course, replacing Art Star, who played with them last season. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm glad that Art Star is getting an opportunity to do something else as well. She played with them last season after replacing. She played on Hyperion. And then she played on Team Karma. She was replacing Bungie, and that's kind of where that went. Now they have Bunny coming back in. Bunny, of course, had played with Olya previously in... who was the team that qualified for for Katowice all those seasons ago? Hold on. Impact Katowice in 2023. Saints. That's the team. Bunny, Olya, Jake Rani, Paula, and Kiki, because Scraft could not go. Yeah, I remember that squad. It's all up here, guys. So Bunny comes in to join the squad. Notably, she's been in Europe most of the time. Of course, her boyfriend Flashy is the analyst for Navi, so she spends most of her time over there. But yeah, she's come back to North America to play with them, and it's a good opportunity for her. She's played with a few European teams and Cash Cups and stuff. Never been on any official team, but she's kind of been hanging around. Counter-Strike is in her blood, so of course that's what she's gonna do. Really cool to see from her. And then of course, there is no final team to qualify from Season 5 because Limitless disbanded at the end of the season. All the players went their separate ways. Initially, they were playing on Lotus, but that didn't come to pass. The team basically broke up. They lost a few too many players to different things, and they just could not handle it. So that team is gone. And we'll get to Lotus in a second here because that team does exist, but we're going to talk about the teams to qualify through qualifier number 1, and we are going to start with Lumen. And it's funny you mention Limitless because Lumen has both Bazdaria and Piggy Kiki on it, 2 previous players from that Limitless squad. They're forming up together with Scraft, Love of My Life, and Sakura, and it's a very interesting roster. It's got two Ukrainians, a Russian, Piggy Kiki, who's playing in Canada but is actually from China, and then Sakura, who's a Belarusian. So very, very interesting roster to come forward. I'm positive. I'm hopeful to see what they kind of can do, and it's nice to see that Daria and Piggy Kiki were able to find their footing. Scraft as well, a great player, in my opinion, a little underrated. I don't think she gets as many looks as she should, but she's a great player, and I'm positive to see what they do on Lumen. And of course, there's an open qualifier. There's an open spot to qualify for Season 7. So that's their hunt there. Joining them is Nouns from qualifier number 1. Ash, Lunari, Catalyst, Jesscast, and Rainy coming back with Onter as well as their coach. Nouns, of course, coming off of getting a huge contract win with Nouns. They're getting paid quite well. And the hope is this time it sticks. They get to stay. They, of course, were 5th place in Season 5. I just want to verify that I'm correct saying that. Yeah, they were just sitting outside in 5th place. And so they're looking this time with that open spot to try and qualify for Season 7, get something on lock that they can use. It remains to be seen kind of what comes of this. I mean, they had a bit of roster turmoil last season. Rice parted ways with the squad. She was replaced by, I believe at the time, Tokis, and they had Napka subbing in as well at some points. So it was a bit of a disaster for them in that end. The hope is they're going to have something consistent this season that they won't have to worry about, and that they'll be fine to run with and qualify for that with that 4th place spot. Maybe even fight for 3rd place because they've looked really good in the last few weeks leading into Season 6. All right. A little breather here. The last 3 squads to qualify were Lotus, Impact, and Aware. We're going to start with Lotus, and of course, this is the squad that was initially the remnants of Limitless. You had Fox, you had Mira, you had Aaron, and you had a few other players kind of sprinkled in there as well. That has fallen by the wayside. Mira and Aaron have dropped out. It's left it with then Fox as the remaining player to come from that Limitless squad, and of course Chance and a few of the other I guess backbone organizational people that they have are keeping with them as well. So the team is Fox, Accessor, Arianarchist, Zazu, and Grimoire, with Chance as the coach. An interesting roster. I'm unsure where to place them because Grimoire is new to Counter-Strike. She's previously a Valorant, and Zazu is a relatively new player in terms of her age. Arianarchist, of course, is an old head. She's been around for a long time. She's never really had a good opportunity on a long-form team, although Cleanup Crew did relatively well last season, which is pretty cool to see. And Accessor is another name that kind of, I see and I'm like, didn't she play last season? But I don't believe she did. No, I'm just doing a quick check. She didn't. Of course, you have to remember, Cleanup Crew is Arianarchist, Shelby, Gadfly, Bubsy, and Paula. So Arianarchist is the only player from that squad to make it, which is very interesting to see. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff to come out of that, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. They've been kind of on and off in the last few weeks. They didn't qualify through the first qualifier. Lumen were the ones to beat them, I believe. So just verify that. Yeah, sorry, they didn't even make it that far. I'm going to quickly open up the bracket and make sure, because the top 4 were Old Stars, Aware, Gnomes, and Nouns. So yeah, let's check the bracket. Yeah, so they lost to Old Stars, but it was in the quarterfinals. So they didn't even get that far, which is unfortunate for them, but is what it is. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of where they go from there, and what it looks like for them in the season. I hope that they play competitively. I kind of see them slotting in a 5th, 6th position. The remaining 2 teams then to talk about is Impact and Aware. Impact, Gadfly, Gon, Raven, Serendipity, and STX. They have been on fire in recent times. They look pretty good for a team that, kind of has come out of nowhere. Gadfly, of course, previous season. Gon is in as well. Raven, Serendipity, and STX are all new as far as I've seen. They look pretty good. They look like, as a team to watch. Serendipity as well, of course, is a big name in terms of keeping an eye on. I believe she's played in Valorant in previous in Game Changers and stuff. She's looking really good. And then the final team to qualify was Aware Impact. Cloudy, Lexa, EP Rain, the Cat, and Tukis. We know a few of these names. Lexa and Tukis have been around for a little bit. EP Rain, the Cat, and Cloudy are all relatively new. This is one of those squads that's kind of like, I don't want to say a filler, but they got in. It was a tough road for them to get in. They got in because of the final qualification spot from the loss of Limitless between Season 5 and Season 6. And they've been all right. They've been okay. I expect to see a lot from them, hopefully. Not a lot. I expect to see something from them. Maybe not necessarily putting up the results in terms of wins, but in terms of hard rounds and keeping games competitive is kind of where I sit them. There's no expectations for them other than to just do their best. So that's the best part of it all. But yeah, interesting to see on all that stuff. And that's North America. That is North America. And I think we are about to have an under an hour pod for the first time in quite a little bit. What am I going to be watching? Everybody in the comments. It's going to be ESL Impact. We're in with another season. I have to get all my permissions from the community casting side. However, we just put that in today. So that's the good news. Yeah, I'm excited. The match to watch in North America specifically is going to be TSM Shimmer going up against FlyQuest Red. It absolutely blows that is a week 2 match, by the way. Whoever organized that, we need to have some words. That should have been a week 7 match to decide everything. Bring the hype, bring the storyline. Instead, every game after week 2 could potentially be dead rubber for literally every other team except for who qualifies in the top 4. Who for thought? Anyways, that's going to be this episode. We're going to end it here before we go any further. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I'm so sorry that it's just a solo episode. We're going to have a little bit of a change up in terms of where stuff goes because you can see it's a different kind of banner. Yeah, it's a bit weird being the only one here. I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much. I'm trying to plan a live episode of Brace for Impact coming up in the near future here. It's a bit difficult to do, especially with with Affinity's changing schedule and kind of where I sit in terms of how busy I get during the weeks. Playoffs is upcoming in the ESEA seasons as well. It all comes to a head at the same time. Anyways, I'm going to leave you there. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy some ESL Impact in the next few weeks. We will be back very soon. I might come back next week to kind of even up the weeks. We'll see where we sit. Until then, do take care. Bye for now.